Thanks for having me here, and thank you for being in here to listen to me talk. So I know I look like I'm like 15 years old, but I'm 30. I've been in the business since 10 years now. As Bill said, I graduated from Columbia. And while I was there, I applied for an internship turning there in the news department for the 11 a.m. news, which is canceled now, but it was with Linda Yu and Sylvia Perez. So I was interning with a producer there by the name of Vicky Giamona, and she produced the special segments on the news. So like everything you saw in the news that wasn't news, like makeover segments, fashion segments, food segments, all of that is what I helped her produce. And as Bill said, I really never left. My internship was supposed to be only 3 months, and I made sure that I stayed because that was my first step in securing my foot in the door. For the 2 years I was interning, I'd interned in the news, and I switched over to the programming department, which is where I ultimately ended up working. I started interning for, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the show 190 North. It's hosted by Janet Davies. Mm-hmm. That's canceled too now. Unfortunately, it was canceled this year after 15 years on air, but I started interning for that show, and I was writing, I was interviewing, started to learn how to edit while I was doing that. And when I graduated, I went right out of college as a producer. I started as a producer, which was amazing. And I've been doing that for 8 years now. So 190 North was the primary responsibility that I had producing that. I did that for the last 7 or 8 years. Unfortunately, it was canceled this year, which sucks. But it was a good show, right? Yeah. We went to, and for people that don't know, it was a local entertainment show. It's the longest running local entertainment show in Chicago. We highlighted restaurants, bars, just fun things to do in the city. So while I was working in the programming department, I also helped start producing the parades. ABC does a lot of local parades. I would field produce for those. I started producing the New Year's Eve broadcast, which I'm actually working on right now. That's the only local New Year's Eve broadcast in all of Chicago. So if you guys have a TV turned on, to watch the countdown local, it's always Channel 7 because there's no other station that's doing that right now. So we're working on that, and I've been working on that since I've been there. I also produce Let's Dish, which is a nationally televised cooking show, as Bill said, on the Live Well Network, which is a Disney-owned network. And that's hosted by Chris Koetke. And like he said, we've had a lot of good chefs on, Rick Bayless, things like that. I edit the show. I'm the only writer, producer, and editor on the show. I'm the sole person to do all of that. So it's a lot of work. But it's a lot of fun. And since my other show is canceled, I have more time to do that. In the last few years, I've also worked with Richard Dominic, who was the creator of Jerry Springer. And Bill's worked on Jerry Springer as well in the past. So I produced a few pilots with him out in the field. One of them was True TV's Hardcore Pawn, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with, but I produced the first 2 episodes of that. And that was interesting because, if you've seen the show, you know what I'm talking about. It's in Detroit, right? It's in Detroit, yeah. So there's a lot of crazy things going on there. But it's always fun because you meet new people every day. And so a lot of people ask me what is a TV producer, and that's a loaded question because it really depends. Every project is different. Every genre is different. It varies, from project to project, genre to genre. Every day is different. But ultimately, it's the TV producer is responsible for the entire production, from concept to being on air. And if it goes well, we get praise, and if it sucks, we get in trouble. So, but we write copy, we do the interviews, we coordinate shoots, we coordinate crews, everything you could think of.
Are you responsible for everything that takes place? Like who's going to do the interview, what the filming is going to be like, any music or? Everything,
all aspects of that.
Great.
I did the writing, I did the interviewing, I wrote the stand-ups for the talent, the editing, I picked the music. Yeah, so I guess everything. Yeah.
Did you get to go on site to all these places?
Yeah, I was there. I was at all those Hawks games and taking advantage of being in the media booth. It was great. So I interviewed like Pat Foley and all the players, yeah. Yes.
Do you, like when you're picking the footage and writing, do you write what you want first and then pick the segments that complement, or which comes first?
So what I do first is I go through the tape or the P2 card or whatever it is, and I log everything. Like you can have an intern do that, but I like to do it so I could see all my footage. And then after that, my process is I kind of just go through and I highlight like good shots that I saw. I highlight really good sound bites, and then I build my script from there. So I kind of...
So you do start with the
Put your script in between the highlights of... Okay.
Yeah, and I'll write voiceover and just kind of make it all tie together and move things around if it doesn't flow. Sorry. Yes.
So for I-90, you did like all the components then, but is that how it was for you with like all the jobs, or are you primarily like a producer for one job? Or?
As I said before, it depends like from project to project. But for the most part, all the stuff I've worked on, yeah, I've been responsible for all of that.
Do you prefer it to where you're responsible for all of the aspects?
Yeah, because I like to have control over my stuff, and I like to tell other people what to do. And it's hard actually, you know, for someone, because I am like the boss of my stuff, and being a young woman and short, and I look very young, you know, it's sometimes hard to be taken seriously. That's why you got to kind of be a Bia sometimes, and you know, be assertive, and that's kind of, it gets you where you are.
How long would you say on a daily basis, like to produce or like to get your ideas gathered and know what you want to do? How long would it take to execute? Maybe
like 3 weeks. Yeah, so that Blackhawks piece, it was kind of labor intensive, as you probably saw. That probably took like a month, and it was just one segment of a whole half-hour show, but for all the planning and the writing and the interviewing and the shooting, it took maybe like a month.
So with that being said, how advanced, like when do you start, as soon as a new season starts, you start producing for the next season, or how does that work?
So with that, and like, well, with my cooking show, it's a little different, but with this, it was a weekly show. So we would have planning meetings maybe 2 months in advance where we would start programming the upcoming shows.
Did you get to choose what segments you wanted to do, or were you kind of told, like, this is the idea that we want, and then you, like, had created?
It was a little bit of both. Like, so we would have the programming meetings and the pitching meetings, and we would pitch ideas that we were interested in doing, and our executive producer, who in this case was her, Janet, she would either say yes or no. And sometimes she would have ideas that she'd bring to the table, and she would assign it to certain producers. But for the most part, like, the things, you know, that we pitched our own ideas.
What would you say is your greatest strength, and was there a moment where you knew this is it, I'm in?
I'm in?
Yeah.
Well, I always knew I wanted to get into TV. Like when I was in grade school, I would take a video camera with my sister, and we would make little newscasts when we were like 5 and 6. But I feel like I knew I made it, I guess, when I won an Emmy. I guess that's one. Yeah, it was pretty validating. Yeah. Yes.
So how many producers come together on a show like this?
So for this one, there were 5 of us.
Okay.
For Let's Dish, I'm the only one. For the New Year's Eve broadcast I'm working on now, there's 2 main producers, myself and another person, and then there's like 5 field producers. Yeah, so I keep saying this, but it does depend on the project.